Now we are going to discuss about the topic plant tissues. In the first chapter we discussed about the cells, that is animal cell and plant cells. Now in this chapter we are going to discuss about the tissues. Now tissue is nothing but a group of cells or cluster of cells. They can perform the same functions and they have a similar structures. Observe the flowchart. Here the plant tissues are divided into two types, that is meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue again of three types, that is apical meristematic tissue, intercalary meristematic tissue and lateral meristem, and these three names are given on the basis of the regions where the meristematic tissue develops or divides. Second one is the permanent tissue. And this permanent tissue is also develops from the meristematic tissue only, and it is also divided into two types, that is simple permanent tissue, complex permanent tissue. From the simple permanent tissue, the cells shows their different functions. So they named as parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma tissue. And complex permanent tissue again of two types, that is xylem and phloem. Xylem helps for the water transportation and it contains tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Whereas phloem helps in the nutrients transportation. Sieve tubes elements, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers are present in the phloem tissue. Observe this slide. It is a meristematic tissue. The plant shows types of meristematic tissues. What we define this meristematic tissue is a tissue that is responsible for the growth of the plant and is a specific region is called meristematic tissue, and it is also known as the dividing tissue of the plant. Dividing means it divides and gives growth of the plant. In certain regions it shows different tissues. For example, at the tips of the root and stem there is a tissue is called apical meristem. And the nodes and internodes contains a tissues is called intercalary meristem, whereas at the sides of the lateral sides of the plant they consist of lateral meristem. As this meristematic tissue helps in the growth of the plant, and it has a general characters like actively dividing cells. Because of this dividing cell character, it gives growth of the plant. Dense cytoplasm is also present and a prominent nucleus is present, and the cell wall is very thin. And it contains the cell consists of lack of vacuoles because there is no need of storage of the food in the meristematic tissue. Only it helps in the for the growth of the plants. Types of meristematic tissues. The first type is the apical meristematic tissue, and this is present at the roots and shoot apex. Functions is responsible for the extension of shoots and root of the plant, and it is observed at the root and shoot of the shoot apex. Lateral meristematic tissue, second type, and its location is present laterally in the stem and roots. Functions plays an important role in the lateral growth of the stem and roots. And last one is intercalary meristem. This is located at the nodes and internodes. Functions helps in the vertical elongation of the plant. Second type of tissue is the permanent tissue. Permanent tissue is also developed from the meristematic tissue only. Meristematic tissue after certain time stops its divisions is called a permanent tissue. This permanent tissue is of two types, that is simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue is of three types, parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, and complex permanent tissue is of two types, that is xylem and phloem. Parenchyma is the first type of simple permanent tissue. It is located throughout the plant. It functions like structural support and storage of the materials. And these cells shows some characteristic properties, like it shows large intercellular spaces, and these are the living cells, and has a small nucleus, but the cytoplasm is dense, thin cell walls, and the cells are very round shaped and oval shaped cells. Again, the parenchyma cells are again divided into two types based on their functions. That is, one is chlorenchyma and second one is erenchyma. If the parenchyma cells contains chlorophyll, then the tissue is called as chlorenchyma tissue. If the cells are filled with air, is called the tissue is called as erenchyma cells. Okay, these chlorenchyma cells shows some characteristic properties, that is oval or round shaped cells having thin cell wall, dense small nucleus and dense protoplasm is present, abundant in chloroplast, performs photosynthesis. Because of the chlorophyll, it shows photosynthesis, and this is present throughout the plant. Where the plant is green color, there should be a chlorenchyma is present. And the if the some of the parenchyma cells are filled with air, that is the tissue is called erenchyma tissue, and these cells are oval or round shaped cells having thin cell wall, dense small nucleus, contains large air cavities, which is not present in chlorenchyma cells, help aquatic plants to keep them float. So as we understood that the chlorenchyma is large amount of chlorenchyma is present on the terrestrial plants, and erenchyma cells are present on the aquatic plants as they help on the float of the water. The second type of simple permanent tissue is called as collenchyma. As it is present, it mostly found in climbers, as it gives a flexibility to tendrils and provide mechanical support to the plant. It shows some characteristic properties like long living cells, and the cell walls are very thick, as the thin cells are present in the parenchyma. Here, collenchyma contains thick cells, and very large intercellular spaces are present. Irregular thickening of the cells are observed in these cells. Third type of simple permanent tissue is the sclerenchyma tissue, and this sclerenchyma tissue is present on the hard seed coats and vascular bundles. Its cells are very thick cell wall, long and narrow cells are present. It is a completely dead tissue, so the outer layer of the stem is also called as a sclerenchyma tissue. That is, cork is developed from the stem. The cork is also sclerenchyma tissue. It gives only hardness to the seed coats and stem. Another type of tissue is protective tissue, and this protective tissue is present at the leaf epidermis, root epidermis and cork. Protective tissue is present on the upper layers of the leaf. The upper layer of the leaf is called as epidermis, and again this epidermal cells is also lined with a thin layer is called as a cuticle. And this cuticle shows certain functions like outermost layer and prevents loss of water, prevents mechanical damage, and this also prevents the damage from the bacteria and all other organisms, and have stomata. And stomata is nothing but these are the pores which are present on the leaf on both the sides, upper side and lower side. But when compared to upper side, lower side consists of more stomata, and it helps in the facilitate the gaseous exchange, and it regulates water loss. Mainly this stomata is having two guard cells. The guard cells are looking like the bean shaped, and it contains chlorophyll also. Mostly its openings helps the exchange of gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide, and helps in the transpiration also. Cork is also a protective tissue. Cork found in woody stem of the world plants made from protective tissues, reduce water loss, prevents mechanical injury, and this cork mainly consists of a substance suberin. In the permanent tissue, there is a second type of tissue, that is complex permanent tissue. The complex permanent tissue is again divided into two types, that is xylem and phloem. In that first one, xylem is xylem, which consists of tracheids, vessels, parenchyma, fibers. The tracheids are observed in this picture. Large dead cells in the end-to-end placement of the cells provide a continuous channel. Walls are lignified and provided mechanical support. And the vessels are free flow of water and mineral cells are placed on end to end. Lignified cell walls and transverse wall dissolve to form continuous channel. Parenchyma cells stores starch and fats, assist in the short distance transportation, whereas fibers involved in the transportation of providing mechanical support. Mainly the xylem helps for the transportation of water from the root tip to the each and every cell of the plant, including in the leaves. Also, the water transportation takes place only by the xylem tissue. Complex permanent tissue, the second type is called as a phloem tissue, and this phloem tissue also contains a C tubes, companion cells, parenchyma and fibers. These C tubes are looking like elongated cells placed end to end, making tubular structure. Transverse walls are performed. These are called sieve plates. Transports sugars and nutrients. So sieve tubes helps in the transportation of sugar and nutrients. Second one is the companion cells. These companion cells are closely associated with the sieve tubes, controls the activity of sieve tubes. So its function is to control the activity of sieve tubes. Third one is the parenchyma. Main role is of food storage, stores organic food like starch. Parenchyma stores food. And third one is the fourth one is the fibers. Sclerenchymatous tissue provides mechanical support. The fibers present in the phloem is a sclerenchymatous tissues, that is dead cells, and it provides a mechanical support. Mainly the sieve tube function is the transport of sugars and nutrients. Companion cells in the controls the activity of the sieve tubes, and parenchyma is the stores organic food like starches, and fibers it gives a mechanical support. Mainly the phloem helps in the transport of the nutrients to overall the plant, and these are all the tissues make and form a plant to bring our nature.